Bonjour tout le monde. Alors, tiens, on va tester un nouveau petit... Non, plus haut la caméra. Non, plus bas, plus haut, plus bas ou plus haut? Plus bas. Hop, full screen.
Discord, love it or hate it, you probably didn't expect it to be a view bot for
J'ai pas
YouTube.
dit tu démarres. Ok. Alors, petite vidéo apparemment sur un truc qui s'est passé récemment, pardon. Discord a cassé YouTube et je veux un peu voir ce qui s'est passé. Donc il va nous faire une petite review et puis on va regarder ça.
Discord, love it or hate it, you probably didn't expect it to be a view bot for YouTube, and I don't think they did either. I want to break down one of the weirdest things I have ever seen in the modern web YouTube world, and I think I'm uniquely qualified here because I know a lot about embeds, a lot about how views are tracked, and I'm a YouTuber and an ex-Twitch engineer, so I'm in the weeds on this stuff. So what the hell are we talking about? Well, 2 days ago, on April Fool's, a Discord loot box video was uploaded. It was meant to be a joke about how loot boxes are in everything and they just cost money and give you nothing of value. They're trying to make a funny April Fool's Day joke about it. They did that by uploading this video, but more importantly, they used this video inside of the Discord app. If we look here, you'll see loot boxes have arrived, test your luck. And when you hover over this, the video slides up and starts playing. I wish I had a video of it because it was actually like a pretty nice experience. I was surprised how good it looked and how smooth things like the animation and such were, especially on my high refresh rate monitor. What I didn't realize when I saw this is that this was a YouTube embed. Why does that matter? And why would you use a YouTube embed in the first place? Well, if you know anything about video hosting, you know how disgustingly expensive it can get. If we were to look at even like a platform that's really well priced, like Mux, I want to emphasize Mux has good pricing. And if we scroll to the actual delivery rates, this might seem very cheap, where it's like 0.09 cents per minute, so 0.1 cents per minute. If we assume everybody gets a minute of footage and you have 1 million users, that's still hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if you increase the resolution, it can get much worse. Other video platforms can be even more absurd. On top of that, even implementing something like this properly is not the easiest thing to do. Encoding, thankfully, they make free, but the delivery of on-demand video is not cheap. And once you go into live video, it gets way worse. It's 3 cents per minute of encoding. Whew. And when you compare this to prices on other services like Amazon's IVS, it's even worse. But Mux is great, love them a lot. Their pricing here is totally fair, but if you're delivering video to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, this is expensive. And that's why Discord opted out of doing this. Because if they want to have a ton of people playing this video at once, that's not cheap. In fact, that's quite expensive. And they chose to not do that. This is actually something I advocate for pretty regularly. If you're okay with your video being publicly accessible on YouTube, why would you pay to have it hosted privately somewhere else? If you don't if you wanted to paywall your content, if you wanted to build your own streaming app, if you want to do any of those things, Mux is best in class for that. If you want to add a video into your docs site or have a little embed thing like this, you don't need to host your own video. YouTube as a platform for just free video is great.
Ouais, c'est vrai. Effectivement. On va pas chercher à uploader des vidéos et à hoster ça alors que c'est gratos sur YouTube. Effectivement. Et donc ils ont fait ça, ils ont embedé une vidéo YouTube dans leur app. C'est ça que j'ai pas compris. Si c'était dans leur app ou c'était dans... Là c'est une image de Twitter. Hein.
Option, because as cheap as this might seem, nothing is cheaper than free, especially at scale. And when you look at the scale, which if we check their YouTube, was 1.4 billion views, that would not have been cheap. Let's do the math quick, because I'm curious. Calc 1, it was 1.4 billion. So 1.4 billion times that number, they would have had to spend $1.3 million via Mux to play back that video. That's why they didn't host the video. Why would you host this and spend that money when YouTube will do it for free and cover it for you? It makes no sense to host your own video if you don't have to. And YouTube, for any of many reasons, is more than willing to just eat these costs for us, even if you're not running an ad on the video. What Discord did here effectively is cost YouTube a hilarious amount of money to cover their video hosting costs for them. So yeah, if you're wondering why they use a YouTube embed, here's your $1.5 million answer. What's more interesting though, is that those actually counted as views and YouTube didn't lock them out when it happened. This person on Twitter, Marvin Witt, actually dug in and showed that this is an iframe video embed, which is, it makes sense. It's just way easier to do it this way. I've built...
Alors, little pop-up button right over. Ah, ok, c'est une pop-up sur l'app Discord qui... Alors, putain, c'est con parce que j'ai Discord, j'ai pas vu cette espèce de petit embed là sur l'app. Où est-ce qu'ils auraient mis ça?
A lot of things like this where I just use a quick little iframe YouTube embed in order to make a video play without having to host it myself. It is a great option, and I understand why people do that. Where things get more complex, though, is how does YouTube track views on these things? YouTube's way of tracking a view isn't perfectly solid, and they don't have it documented anywhere. Usually, the way they describe the YouTube view tracker is they are trying to detect when a viewer would have said they viewed a video. So if you have a 2-hour-long video and you watch the first 15 seconds and close it, and then someone asks, hey, did you watch that video? Your answer isn't going to be yes, because you didn't really watch it. Whereas if it's a short 30-second thing and you watch 25 seconds of it, yeah, that probably is going to count as a view because you would say, I watched this video. They want the view tracking to be meaningful in that sense because their goal is to track how many people watch the thing, not how many people clicked the link. They don't share exactly how they calculate this, and they're changing it all the time. But view tracking and view counting on YouTube is not some obvious, like you hit play and then you get tracked, which is why this gets even weirder, because this embed was almost certainly not seen by most people. These plays all came because this was running in the background for...
C'est vrai, c'est que je ne l'ai pas vu, pourtant j'ai Discord ouvert assez régulièrement. J'ai pas vu ça.
For everybody who used Discord on April 1st. So every single Discord user had this playing. They downloaded all of the video content from YouTube. They had it decoding in the background. They were using GPU and CPU accelerated threads for that decoding. There is a probably absurd amount of bandwidth and money and CPU cost and energy that was used for this because it appeared on every Discord user's app. 1.4 billion times to be specific, possibly even more depending on how YouTube was tracking those things. It was also looping, which loops shouldn't count towards additional views, but in this case, with a number that big, it probably did some amount. For reference of just how big 1.4 billion is on YouTube, especially for 2 days uploaded, here's a list of the top 10 most viewed videos on YouTube. Obviously, everyone's favorite Baby Shark is number 1 at 14 billion, but even number 10, we're already down to 5 bill, and that's over 6 years. So when you think about it, getting over a fifth that many views in 2 days is a glaring, hilarious mistake on the part of Discord. So much so that they even tweeted, oops, which is kind of hilarious. They've been good sports about it. I have respect for that. But yeah. The issue here is how hard it is to track what a real viewer is. It's not as simple as somebody attached themselves to this video feed, now they count as a viewer. Because view botting is a thing that all these platforms are trying really hard to prevent. Twitch, for example, has gone out of their way to try and prevent botting. There have been a bunch of weird instances that have caused Twitch's views to not mean what they used to. One in particular that was brutal was when wiki sites would embed streams in the site. Back in the day, Fandom, which is like a wiki for random games and other sites like it, would just embed a random streamer from Twitch on the site. So you would just go here and have a little random Twitch stream playing in the corner. And that would count as a viewer. If you clicked the X to close it, it was still running in the background. They just hit it, and Twitch still counted that as a view. Which...
C'est pas mal ça. De créer un site. Ah, c'est pour ça qu'ils font ça. Tu crées un petit site qui balance une vidéo YouTube, ça compte comme une vue. Et même si le mec ferme, ça va continuer à tourner en background. Et du coup, ça va compter comme une vue quand même. Même si la personne ne regarde pas la vidéo. Petit hack. Ouh. Et du coup, ils ont fixé ça ou pas?
Which was insane. The result of this was whoever got picked to be the current person that was embedded on the Stardew Valley site would suddenly have their views go from like 20 to 2,000 because anybody pulling up Stardew Valley wiki on their phone as they're playing on their Switch now counts as a viewer towards your stream. For Twitch to fix this, they had to make massive changes to how embeds work and are detected as views. And it's gotten better, but view botting is still absolutely a thing on Twitch, so much so that you'll randomly get spam in your chat from accounts saying, hey, you can pay us and we'll 10x your views for $5. Because no matter how good Twitch gets at these things, it's still hard to detect. And Twitch has massive incentives to deal with this, not just because having a bigger view number benefits streamers unfairly and is making the platform less trusted, but because every time somebody's view is being tracked, especially if the view is being tracked because they are downloading the video feed, now you're distributing so much more video. And as we showed with the costs before, that video cost can get really brutal really quick, like in millions of dollars. So if somebody's faking millions of views, and for each of those they have to fetch your video feed, that's an insanely expensive problem, both on how it makes your platform seem less trustworthy, but also just the raw video cost. There's a lot of instances where Twitch has had to work around these things. Another one of my favorites was the way ad blocks worked. For a while, the way an ad blocker would prevent you from getting ads on Twitch was it would keep requesting from the video endpoints like, hey, give me video, hey, give me video, hey, give me video. Because usually when you get back a stream video feed from Twitch, if pre-rolls are on, it will start with the ad, and then once the ad plays, it will give you the rest of the video feed. But if you just spam it enough times, eventually you'll get a video feed that doesn't have the ad at the beginning. So effectively, when we made that change on the info side where you get the ad as part of the same video, like feed call, the fix that was implemented on the blocking side, like with uBlock and such, was to DDoS Twitch's video like exposure endpoint, the one that actually gives you the video feed to play. Just hit it hundreds of times per user until eventually you got a video feed that didn't have an ad at the front. Effectively, uBlock Origin DDoSed Twitch and its video endpoints in order to try and get a feed without ads. It's crazy how...
Est-ce que c'est pas fou ça? C'est-à-dire que uBlock Origin bloque les pubs, donc bloque aussi les pubs de Twitch, et du coup, putain, ils se sont fait DDoS parce que, bah du coup, quand tu n'as pas la pub, ça va en boucle demander la pub, et du coup, bam, DDoS. Ok, super.
Often these types of things happen because people don't work at the companies and understand how much weight this puts on the infrastructure, be it Discord embedding a thing that gets played 1.4 billion times, or a view botter trying to spice the numbers up and raise a bunch of view counts on Twitch, or somebody just trying to block ads. All of these things can just destroy infrastructure. And I don't even want to think about how expensive this was on the YouTube side, because it certainly was in that $1 million+ range. Somebody just dropped a link that seems really handy, actually, of a chart tracking the view count. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Congrats, Discord, for making something that is hundreds of times more popular than the GTA 6 trailer. Nuts. Jesus Christ. This is so insane. This is so insane. Apparently, Ludwig included the tweet in a video. Oh, and here's the final chart at 24 hours. Oh, that makes it way funnier. For those who don't know how these things tend to work, once you hit a certain threshold of viewership, this sounds silly, and I know you guys are gonna think I'm insane for saying this, but it's expensive to track views. If you have a table that shows how many views...
Effectivement, ça, il y a ça s'arrête à 300 vues, donc il est là le palier, je pense, ça doit être 300 à peu près. Et apparemment, il y a un autre palier à, je sais pas, 600, où il arrête de compter les vues parce que c'est cher. Hein, complètement. Et du coup, il doit faire un petit batch à la fin pour... et t'as l'update avec toutes les nouvelles vues. C'est 500 ou c'est combien de vues? Ah, en millions. Donc ça, c'est combien alors? Attends. 500 millions? Oh, attends, on va voir, c'est des millions.
Exist in a field, and you have to keep increasing that hundreds of times a second, you get to a point where actually persisting that update is more expensive than it's worth. Writing to your database thousands, if not like millions in this case, of times a second is not ideal, especially if it turns out that that data is fake. So this is, Igor already mentioned, this is similar to that classic 301 views bug where YouTube would, at a certain point with a new video, just lock the viewership, track all the views that were happening in a queue, and after analyzing and determining that, that traffic was real, they would just start counting the view count again normally. This is that. This is that with a very strange delay much later on.
Ouais, donc c'est ce qu'il raconte à partir des 300 vues, IQ. J'ai jamais remarqué ça, j'ai pas eu beaucoup de vues sur mes vidéos, hein. Mais c'est pas grave. Et ouais, ok. Et apparemment, il y a d'autres paliers comme ça où ils commencent un petit peu à queuer. Et putain, c'est assez long, hein. C'est aller de midi à quasiment 22h.
Where when this video was getting too many views too fast, you can even see it happening here as well. They locked it, and it slowly started going up again. Then it got locked for a bit, and then all of the traffic from the earlier views that were in this window that wasn't being counted just instantaneously spikes up to the top. Yeah, I'm not going to be too critical towards Discord though. First off, because this bug isn't intuitive. Here's a random Discord employee that just did not expect this. An engineer that's supposedly pretty high up. I totally believe it. No idea who this person is, but like, yeah. Most people, even talented web and infrastructure devs, might not immediately understand what's going on here. So for her to say, how the fuck is this video getting so many views? That checks out. It is not intuitive that using a YouTube iframe embed is going to count every single person who mounts that as a view because the video is short enough that the algorithm just counts that. There's a lot of ways YouTube could fix this. One is they could have the iframe detect if it's actually in view or not and use that to help count views. One would be not having videos that are a certain...
Je sais pas si vous avez compris, hein, mais en gros, à chaque fois que tu embeds une vidéo en iframe, même si tu la lis pas, il comptera ça comme une view.
Length count in iframes at all. One could just be not counting iframe views, period. There's a lot of ways that they could limit the way that this count is happening, but they also probably want this to happen because it highlights that this developer kind of did something unintended. That said, I have absolutely used YouTube embeds to do things like this, and I absolutely will in the future because it is so much cheaper and so much easier than setting these things up yourself, even with a really nice platform like Mux. So I totally get how this happened. Honestly, I probably would have done the same thing, and I would not have expected YouTube to count hidden iframe embeds as views. But when you also consider that this is running on your CPU and just costing you performance because it is in your Discord instance, there are things that could have been done better here. I don't know if an auto-playing video of any form is something that belongs in a chat app. That's all I have to say, though. I'm curious what you guys think. Is this totally reasonable or absolutely absurd of them to do? And until next time, peace nerds.
Nice. Et du coup, alors attendez, parce que du coup, j'ai pas vu cette vidéo, on va la regarder. Discord. Discord lootbox. Ok, c'est tout? Why would we ever bring lootbox into the chat app? 1er avril. Très bien. Eh ben c'est... Oui, c'est instructif. Effectivement, hoster une vidéo dans ton site, le mieux c'est de la mettre sur YouTube, iframe, et bam, c'est gratos, et en plus ça compte des vues dès que le mec va arriver sur ton site. Que du bénéf. C'est bon, Discord peut être le nouvel influenceur. Très bien, merci. Allez, bonne journée.